Hey guys, welcome to the first video in this series. My name is Abraham Leal and I'm going to be your instructor throughout this course. As you already saw in the intro video, I normally don't show my face during the whole process, but today we're going to have a special video, or in this first video, I want to talk about something very interesting, which is the anatomy of hard surface modeling. So, before we jump onto the actual techniques, I just wanted to make this short video to show you a couple of the different areas in which we can divide hard surface. Hard surface is any kind of modeling that we do that represents or recreates surfaces that have very hard edges, like sharp corners, bevels, insets, any sort of like extrusions and stuff where you want the edge to hold very nicely, right? Think about any sort of like mechanical thing, like a camera right here, a microphone, a mouse, a keyboard. All of those would be hard surface, right? Because they're not organic like myself or like my pet dog that's over here. So they're this very like hard surfacey thingies, cars, weapons, props, spaceships, like robots, any of these guys would be considered hard surface. And even though the tools that we use are very similar to creating a character or creating any other 3D model, there are certain tips and techniques that I will be sharing with you throughout this course that are going to be very helpful for you to create whatever you want, applying all of these techniques, of course. Now, as I mentioned, I would divide hard surface into 3 specific areas, and we're going to be exploring all of them throughout the course. So the first area is this one that I have right here on the screen, which is what I would call subdivision hard surface modeling. And when you're thinking about subdivision hard surface modeling, you're thinking about having very clean topology, very clean shapes going into each other and like transforming from one element to the other, but also very dense geometry. Okay, this is usually what you would use for a movie or for a commercial or for a cinematic. This kind of hard surface models need to be very optimized so that you have very low geometry when you're working inside of in your favorite 3D package, and once you render, you smooth that geometry down so that it looks super tight and super nice, right? So I'm using this example here, Pacific Rim, where all of the Jaegers were modeled in this way. This is not an official one. I'm not sure if it's an official one or not, but you can see the amount of density that it's required to create this sort of shape, and this is completely normal. Like, I've seen models from movies that go way above like 5 million polygons for the low poly version, and they get subdivided even more once the render hits. So it's completely normal to go really high. However, as you can imagine, this is not something that we can take into the game world, for instance. So if you want to become a hard surface modeler for the gaming world, then we're going to focus on the second type of elements, which is hard surface for games. When we're talking about hard surface for games, our focus shifts from clean topology and clean edge loop and clean everything to very cool looking models, which we can also get, of course, in the cinematic area. But we're going to be thinking about normal maps. We're going to be thinking about retopology. We're going to be thinking about bakes. Like, how are we going to transfer all of these super cool models that we have inside of ZBrush to an object that's going to be able to run, move, deform, and do a lot of different cool things inside of the game engine, right? So the way you approach things has to be specific to the kind of area that you're working with, because again, they have different ends. Like, they have different goals, I would say. So depending on which one you're working, the techniques that we're going to be showing, some of them are going to be better suited for certain types of elements, and some of them are going to be better suited for the other ones. Now, again, as I've mentioned, in the gaming world, what you're more concerned about is creating these super cool looking guys inside of ZBrush, and then creating a low poly mesh that represents or captures as much of the detail in the silhouette of the character, so that you can transfer all of that high poly detail into a low poly that can be then raked, animated, and used inside of a game engine. We're again going to be doing some exercises about this, and there's some very cool stuff. Like, once you get like the texture and the rust and the metal edgeware and all those things, I mean, this guy looks just amazing, right? So we're going to be going over certain techniques and elements that you can use to create things like the robots from Horizon Zero Dawn as well. And finally, this is one of a little bit more recent, because this was not as well understood a couple of years ago, but now with 3D printing, it's very easy to get into 3D printing, and there's also hard surface for 3D printing. I call this kit bashing, because you can create some very nice models, very nice figures and elements that you're going to be able to 3D print and play with, and you don't need to worry about edge loops, you don't need to worry about UVs, you don't need to worry about bakes or anything. You just need to worry about creating some very cool 3D model. So we're going to be taking a look at what kind of things you can exploit when using or when thinking about this sort of approach, right? Like the hard surface for 3D printing. So these are like the 3 main areas. In this first chapter, we're going to be taking a look at some of the overall like constant concepts that we're going to be using throughout the next couple of chapters, and after that each specific chapter is going to be an exercise. Now I am organizing the chapters in such a way that each one is a little bit more difficult than the last one, so if you already have a little bit of experience, just skim around the topic, see the project, see if that's something that you feel that you can already do, and you're welcome to just move on to the next one. If not, I strongly recommend that you go one, finish it, make sure that it's looking as nice as possible, and then jump on to the next one. Remember, not only watching the videos is important, you also need to do the exercise, otherwise the information that you just learned is not being actually like ingrained in your brain because you haven't done it, right? So that's it for this one, guys. I'll see you back on the next one when we start exploring some of the cool tips and techniques inside of ZBrush.